Hello friends, my name is Emile and welcome back to Reach the Peak, the show where you guys recommend the cars and then I take them up our hill climb course to see which one can come out on top. As always, here for you today we have 5 vehicles and we'll be kicking things off with a touring car legend. This is the 1992 Alfa Romeo 155 Q4. This particular version is the Upgrade Hero variant. Now that means it has 497 horsepower, 463 foot-pound of torque, 2,637 pounds of weight, and it is an S1 class car, 899 in PI. So this is the most powerful vehicle here today, it's the torquiest vehicle here today, it's the lightest vehicle here today, and it's the highest in PI. So definitely on paper this will be the quickest vehicle of today. Another advantage of the Alfa Romeo 155 is it has all-wheel drive, which of course, as we know, going up this hill climb course makes a world of difference. So yeah, the Upgrade Hero variant in this car is pretty crazy. It adds the full DTM touring kit. The only thing I changed from the Upgrade Heroes is of course putting the snow tyres on it, which all cars are required to run up this course. If you didn't change the snow tyres on them, then most of these cars would really struggle. So yeah, that's the only real difference I make. That being said though, the 155 Q4 Upgrade Hero is pretty darn great. It's a really great vehicle to drive. I've driven this on the mainland a little bit as well, just on the sort of, both on the off-road tyres and on the sticky racing tyres it puts on the car by default when you upgrade it to the Upgrade Hero. And yeah, it really is a very good car. One thing that does let it down a bit is the brakes are a little bit meh. I mean, you know, this car is 25 years old, you'd kind of expect the brakes to be a little bit spongy, so there's no real surprises there, but it is worth noting. The vehicle can also suffer from a little bit of understeer, as you'd expect with a highly powered four-wheel drive vehicle. Other than that though, as I said, this is a pretty great car. As far as sort of statistics go on paper, this vehicle should do very well indeed up here. One issue that it could have was the race suspension. Honestly, I didn't find it had that much trouble over the bumps. There was certainly some issues, and it would definitely be improved by being on A, the stock suspension, or B, off-road suspension. But that being said, it didn't really cause too many issues, and ultimately this is a very good vehicle to drive. I love the Alfa Romeo 155, especially with the full DTM kit on it, so yeah, very cool car indeed. Next up, we move on to a rally car hero, one of the most successful and most sought after rally cars of all time. This is the 1992 Ford Escort Cosworth, 224 horsepower, 224 foot-pound of torque, 2,816 pounds of weight. A little bit of an asterisk next to that, this car weighs 5 pounds more than it should due to the rally lights and front bumper and the sort of mud flaps that I put on the vehicle. It does weigh 5 pounds more. That being said though, this car is A730 in PI, so it is actually up 1 PI from what it should be when it's equipped with the snow tyres. I do like to sort of just point out the minor differences that the cars can get when I sort of put on the aesthetic bits. I believe the rally lights on this car do actually save weight, but the mud flaps and front bumper add the weight back on, so yeah, in the end you do end up weighing 5 pounds more. That being said though, it shouldn't really affect the car all that much. When it comes to the Escort, it is a great handling vehicle, there's no doubt about that. You know, 224 horsepower and four-wheel drive, you know, if this vehicle wasn't a very good handling vehicle, then we'd certainly be questioning why that is. I do really like the Escort Cosworth, to be fair. This is one of my more favourite of the rally cars, really love. Sort of the Mark 5, Mark 6 Escorts have always been sort of a car which I'm really into, so yeah, naturally I do, of course, like the Cosworth. Oh, if I had to make a complaint about this car, there is an awful lot of turbo lag in it. This is the 1992 model, which means that this is the version with the bigger turbo. In case you didn't know, the Escort Cosworths had a slight change during their run. Essentially, the earlier cars had a big turbo on them, but they had lots of turbo lag, and the later cars had a slightly smaller turbo that produced slightly less power, but there was less turbo lag involved with that. This vehicle has the bigger turbo, so yeah. It does suffer from a fair bit of turbo lag, you sort of really do feel that off the line, but honestly if you keep it in high enough gears it's fine. The gearbox in this vehicle is decent enough to the point where you shouldn't really be getting below the turbo's power band, but it is something to keep in mind that you do have to sort of keep the car in the correct gear or else you will suffer from turbo lag. Other than that though, the Escort really is a very solid vehicle to drive. You know, you can do pretty much anything with this vehicle, and it'll always be a really, really good sort of vehicle for tackling off-road courses. Next up, another touring car hero. This time we have the 1997 Volvo 850R, 240 horsepower, 221 foot-pound of torque, 3,250 pounds of weight. This B-class car, 689 in PI when equipped with snow tyres. So for those of you who followed the channel for a very long time, you'll know the 850R is one of my absolute all-time favourite cars, and it's probably my favourite of my attainable dream cars, if you will. Yeah, I really do love the 850R. One thing to note about the 850R is this vehicle is in fact front-wheel drive, not rear-wheel or all-wheel. It is front-wheel drive, which is a bit strange when you consider there was all-wheel drive models of the 850R produced. Oh, sorry, of the 850 produced. Why they didn't go with all-wheel drive does confuse me. Maybe the touring car was front-wheel drive, so they decided to translate that into this version. Of course, the 850R really was produced as more of a homologation special to the touring car, which rocked the 94 and 95 BTCC seasons. Wasn't all that successful, but the fact someone had the balls to show up in a wagon was something pretty crazy for the time, and it was only really a couple of years ago when someone else decided to come in the wagon, which was the 2015 season with the Honda Civic Tourer, although that wasn't really that much of a wagon. Anyways, enough about the history of this vehicle. What does it actually drive like? It is decent. It's kind of a slow car. You'd kind of expect that, of course. You know, compared to everything else here today, it does feel fairly slow, apart from our last vehicle, which was even slower. You know, it doesn't weigh, it isn't that light, it doesn't have that much power, so you'd kind of expect that. It is pretty decent handling vehicle. One of the better front-wheel drive cars we've had round. It's not as bad as, say, the Mini or even the 695 by Posto. It's not as good as the EK9, but certainly isn't too far off. Overall, though, very decent vehicle to drive. The 850R is sort of a car which does get a little bit sort of overlooked when you're trying to build a vehicle, but if you want to build sort of an obscure vehicle, the 850 might be up your alley. Ultimately, though, I would say probably don't build it to rally spec, unless you're going to all-wheel drive swap it. It's much more suited as sort of a road car, road racer, preferably in B-class. You know, these things are surprisingly decent when it comes to B-class, so if you are going to build one up that's sort of the class, I would recommend you do so too. But yeah, 850R is a solid vehicle to drive none of the less. Next up, we have the first ever rotary to take on the Reach the Peak course. We have the 1996 Mazda RX-7. This is the FC model. 200 horsepower, 196 foot-pound of torque, 2,981 pounds of weight. This is an A-class car, 715 in PI. When equipped with snow tyres, it is the least powerful vehicle here today, and it's also the least torquey, although admittedly it does have quite a bit more torque than I was expecting from a rotary motor. RX-7, ultimately the FC, I do like the FC. It's probably my least favourite of the RX-7s. I much prefer the first generation, and, you know, the FD is my favourite, with the Spirit R being, you know, my ultimate sort of rotary favourite. Although, I've got to be honest, I do actually, out of all the rotary cars that I like, I do think the RX-8 is my favourite, which, you know, that does rustle some people's jimmies, but, yeah, I like the RX-8 a lot. For me, yeah, the FC's a cool car, certainly. It's not one of my favourites. It's not a particularly interesting car in terms of design to me, but, yeah, it is a cool car nonetheless. As far as the driving goes, it's a nice handling vehicle. It is better than sort of the S14s that we've had go round. You know, I guess they're the most comparable cars to this. And ultimately, yeah, I do prefer the way this thing drives over the S14s. It does have a little bit more grip through the corners. Feels a little bit more responsive too. Granted, the S14s, you know, did have more power and had more PI. But the RX-7 just sort of felt more aerodynamic in the sense that this shape would cut through sort of the air a lot easier. If I had one complaint, the vehicle is a little bit slidey. It's a rear-wheel drive car. You'd kind of expect that. Well, it's a rear-wheel drive sports coupe, so you'd definitely expect that. But again, nowhere near in the same ballpark that the S14s were sliding. You know, sort of, I would put this car maybe on Truno levels. The Truno was a very good vehicle to drive up here. And, you know, the RX-7 is basically that with a bit more power. So, I was impressed by this vehicle. Ultimately, you know, when the time comes for the FD to go up, the FD will obviously be the quicker car. It has, 61 more horsepower. But if the FC is any indication, the RX-7 will be a joy to drive up here. So, yeah, a really, really decent vehicle overall, although not particularly interesting, if I'm being honest. And finally today, we have the, well, heaviest car here today. We have the 1997 Pontiac Firebird, 201 horsepower, 325 foot-pound of torque, 3,800 pounds of weight. By far and away the heaviest vehicle here today. This thing weighs 570 pounds more than the Volvo 850R did, which is pretty darn insane when you consider that. It is a B-class car, 660 in PI. That means it's the slowest PI vehicle here today when equipped with the snow tyres. The Firebird, I do like the 77 Firebird. Out of all sort of the muscle cars, I guess you'd call this a muscle car, the Firebird is definitely one of my favourites, and my favourite model of the Firebird is of course the 77, because I am a big fan of Smokey and the Bandit, and I just like the way this vehicle looks, to be honest with you. It weighs a hell of a lot more than you'd expect it to. Honestly, you look at this vehicle and go, it shouldn't weigh that much, but yeah, it weighs about 800 pounds more than I'd reasonably expect this vehicle to. 201 horsepower means that this is literally 1 horsepower away from being the lowest powered vehicle here today. 325 foot-pound of torque is respectable, though. That means it's the second torquiest vehicle. Ultimately, it is predictably slow. The torque does help this vehicle out. It doesn't feel as slow as you might expect from a 200 horsepower, almost 4,000 pound vehicle. But it's still not, particularly quick by any stretch of the imagination. This thing isn't going to be running any sort of speed challenges anytime soon. It is kind of a relaxing vehicle to drive. Certainly, sort of when you drive this thing around on the mainland, it is a pretty relaxing vehicle to drive. It won't try to sort of kill you with monstrous amounts of power like most muscle cars do of sort of this era. Yeah, the Trans Am, good vehicle. It is good. Certainly don't take it racing, though. If you want to cruise around in this thing with a cowboy hat and a fake mustache, then absolutely, yeah, this is the perfect car for that. If you want to take it racing, especially up a hill climb like this, you'd be better suited with, say, the Dodge Dart. If you want to go with a muscle car, or just, the 1977, there's plenty of other vehicles on offer from this sort of time period that could do this sort of thing. But better. But that being said, though, the Trans Am was fine. It was a decent enough vehicle to drive up here. Certainly, it didn't surprise me, but, it wasn't awful. So I guess that's something. Anyways, the Alfa Romeo 155 is predictably the fastest car today, going into 5th place with a 206.656, which is very, very good indeed. Does beat a standard MG Metro. Beats Bugatti EB110 by 1.5 seconds. Really good showing from the 155 Q4, as I really expected it to be. Moving down the board some more, the Escort Cosworth goes into 50th with a 221.375, fractionally slower than a Mini Cooper, fractionally faster than a Genesis Coupe, 0.4 seconds faster than the Vulcan, 0.6 seconds faster than the 695 by Posto. Good showing from that vehicle as we was expecting. The RX-7 FC goes into 66th place, going in there with a 226.079, a little bit down on a Polaris, but it is 0.7 seconds quicker than an RSX. It is quicker than the fastest S14 we had around as well. So yeah, that is basically an S14, but better. That's the way that vehicle drives. 850R goes into 76th place with 229.149. Just misses out on the Type R Civic, which I will start comparing this vehicle to. It is quicker than the Nissan Titan by 2 seconds, which is really very insane indeed. Beats Falcon XB, Torino, stuff like that. And finally today, predictably the slowest car of today is the Firebird, going into 84th with a 235.556. Still not too bad a showing, does beat an MX-5 Miata fractionally. It is much quicker than the King Cobra, which is good because the King Cobra was awful. But ultimately, I wasn't expecting that vehicle to storm to the top of the leaderboard or anything. Anyways, friends, I want to thank you all very much for watching. As always, if you have cars you'd like to submit for Reach the Peak, simply type them down below in the comment section and I will add them to my list, which is in the description if you want to check out what's already been requested. With that all being said and done, friends, thank you all very much for watching. My name's been the Real Emile, and until next time, farewell.